Hi, and welcome to yet another episode of Take 5. If you remember a few weeks back, we discussed saints with unique sense of humor and qualities. Today, in conclusion to saints, we'll be talking about 3 more saints who are remarkable in their own right. Saints aren't as boring as you'd expect them to be. Some of them are witty and interesting and remarkable human beings, capable of doing so many great things. Like Saint Augustine of Hippo, who was quite the saint. He was rebellious and occasionally loved to push boundaries. His mother, who was Saint Monica, prayed for her son fervently to turn towards God. Augustine was from the beginning a brilliant student with an eager intellectual curiosity, but he never mastered Greek. He tells us that his first Greek teacher was a brutal man who constantly beat his students, and Augustine rebelled and refused to study. By the time he realized that he needed to know Greek, it was a little too late. And although he acquired a smattering for the language, he was never eloquent with it. However, his mastery of Latin was another matter. He became an expert both in eloquent use of the language and in a clever use of arguments to make his points. Saint Augustine of Hippo never shied away from declaring his human flaws. He once famously quoted, "Grant me chastity and continence, but just not yet." Saint Joseph of Cupertino, who was born in a stable and was deemed as remarkably unclever, had ecstatic visions as a child, which later carried on throughout his adult life. This 17th century priest and monk with mental disabilities had such a simple yet deep love for Jesus that he would go into ecstasy and levitate, especially during Mass and Liturgy of the Hours. He levitated in front of huge crowds during public processions and even during an audience with the Pope. He became a massive sensation among the populace, and the large crowds that followed him became a problem. His superiors tried moving him from monastery to monastery, keeping his location a secret. But his location was usually discovered fairly quickly, and the crowds would return. Towards the end of his life, he practiced asceticism, which was when he ate solid food twice a week. Eventually, he returned to the conventional community when he soon passed away. He's a patron saint for aviation, air travelers, astronauts, and people with mental disabilities. Finally, we have Saint Francis of Assisi, who had a special relationship with birds who often followed him around and rested on his shoulders, arms, or hands as he prayed or walked around outside. Birds often symbolize spiritual freedom and growth, so many believers think that the miracle of birds listening intently to Francis's message was sent by God to encourage Francis and his fellow monks to continue their work preaching the gospel message of Jesus Christ, which focuses on how people can become spiritually free and grow closer to God. During one of the journeys, Francis and some of his companions were traveling through the Spoleto Valley in Italy when he noticed that a huge flock of birds had gathered in some trees beside a field. Francis saw that the birds were watching him as if they were expecting something. Inspired by the Holy Spirit, he decided to preach a sermon about God's love to them. Well, that's all we have for you today on this episode of Take 5. If you like this episode, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel for more. And if you've already subscribed to our channel, do not forget to hit that bell icon for future notifications on our weekly episodes. Until then, goodbye.